Some roster turnover before a tough loss to the Boston Bruins, but I don't think there's a need to panic if you're a Bolts fan. We'll talk about last night's game and a whole lot more in today's episode of Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Josh Sperber welcoming all of you into another episode of Locked On Lightning, and I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. You can get tickets to Lightning games, and Lightning will have a home game on Thursday, but a big divisional test on the road for the Bolts. This one, unfortunately, didn't go as planned for Tampa Bay. The Bruins jumped out to a 4-0 lead early on, getting 2 goals in each of the 3 periods, with the third period goals being empty netters for Boston. But it really seemed to be a case of too little, too late for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Though the second period, I think, was solid. Just it's difficult to get back into a game when you're already down 4-1. And that is frankly what happened to the Lightning. They got down 4-0, scored 2 really nice goals in that second period. That Victor Hedman with a big role in both of them, getting a tip in from Connor Geekie in the second to open the scoring for the Lightning about 2 to 3 minutes after the Bruins' last even strength goal of the evening. And then Victor Hedman put one in right at the end of the period. And it really seemed like after that second goal from Hedman that things were going to turn around for the Lightning. You know, last second goal, last 18 seconds if we're really splitting hairs here, but a last second goal after just a really tough start to the game, that can tend to be a momentum shifter. The Lightning never really turned it all the way on in the third period. And I think a big part of that was Jeremy Swayman. The Lightning had, I believe, their most shots on goal in a single game this year. And Jeremy Swayman made 43 saves, which is the most against the Tampa Bay Lightning this season. So Swayman was great. He played well the whole game, and it really didn't start to click for the Lightning until after that fourth goal, unfortunately. Vasilevsky started making some of his nicer saves after the Bruins got their 4 goals, and it just was at a point where the lead was insurmountable for the Lightning, and they just had to take the loss. But it does not change the division standings. The Lightning still with 4 games in hand over the Bruins, even on points, 1 more win than Boston. The Lightning are 23-16-3, the Bruins 22-19-5 in 4th place. So that is still a portion of that Atlantic division that we are going to be watching. And the Lightning are just going to have to play that much harder. You know, you've got a winnable home game against the Ducks coming up before another game against the division. The Red Wings are a bit lower in the divisional standings at 7, but they're still within striking distance. 44 points through 43 games, 5 points out of that 4th place spot right now. I mean, this Atlantic division has a lot of talent, and after a game like last night from Boston, it really shows that I think a lot of it is up for grabs. You know, there's a clear drop-off, I think, between the Maple Leafs and the Panthers in the top 2. I think the Lightning can certainly contend with more the Panthers and the Maple Leafs. They've not beaten Toronto in 2 tries, though they do get another crack in Toronto next week. But, you know, it's really between the Leafs and the Panthers to lose, I feel like, in the Atlantic division. They're both separated by a point right now. The Lightning -6, but with 3 games in hand on both teams. So theoretically, the Lightning are right there. 3 games in hand. If the Lightning win all 3 of those games, they're even on points with the Panthers at 55. 7 points right now behind Toronto, 6 behind Florida. And if the Lightning played 42 games, the Panthers 45, the Maple Leafs also 45. So if the Lightning can string 3 games in a row, which they've done a couple times already this season, they're right back in the thick of it for not just, any playoff spot in the division, but for first or second place. So those 3 games in hand could come out of hand in terms of, being played. The Lightning could end up playing those this month. They do play a total of 16 games in January. It's a busy month for them. They're playing pretty much every other day. But those 3 games in hand could evaporate quickly. And these are just the kind of games that you need to win if you're on the Lightning. They already beat the Bruins at home, but just going back to Boston, and Boston really, really came after them. It was definitely a more physical game than the last one, which is to be expected. The Lightning did out-hit the Bruins, but 14 block shots for Boston was another big part of it. And it reminded me of a game the Lightning played earlier on in the month of December, when it was kind of similar. It was kind of similar like this, in that it was the Rangers game, actually. Rangers 44 shots on goal, the Lightning just 25. The Lightning won that game 6-2. That was back at home for the Lightning right before the holidays. And this game against the Bruins had a really similar makeup, honestly. In that Ranger game back on December the 28th, it was the Rangers who were dominating in terms of shots. But it was the Lightning who were cashing in on all those chances. And that was how it was. It was similar disparity in shots. Instead of 44 for the Rangers, 25 for the Lightning, it was 45 for the Lightning, 24 for the Bruins. Both the games ended 6-2. This time it was the Bruins out on top because they just capitalized on more of their chances. Swayman was great, but you just look at the shot breakdown. In the second and third periods especially, the Lightning outshot the Bruins 20-12 in the second, 16-6 in the third. You have those kind of breakdowns. That's just a game that you expect to win. It's just one of the things that, the breaks didn't exactly go the Lightning's way. Swayman made some really great saves, and Boston cashed in on more chances. It's not like I'm giving clear fault in these to Vasilevsky. He's not the one to blame, I don't think. But there was just a couple of miscues early on that the Bruins took advantage of, and the Lightning weren't able to. Plain and simple. It was just one of those things where things didn't go the Lightning's way. They had the chances. Connor Geekie got the goal against his brother. But it just all didn't line up for the Lightning, despite the fact that they had 21 more shots than the Bruins did. And they've held teams to 21 or fewer shots in a given game before. It's just one of those things that things just didn't break right for the Lightning. And it stinks to have that happen against a divisional opponent. But, that's the way it is sometimes. And it's definitely a tough loss for the Lightning. They will get a couple more chances against Boston in March. But this one just has to sting, especially after dominating the Bruins when Boston came to Amalie Arena last week. You just really wanted another win, especially coming off of that victory against the Penguins coming from behind. It would be nice to go into a homestand with a victory, which it doesn't seem like has happened very often for Tampa. The only exception was the home and home against the Panthers, where the Lightning won the game on the road before their homestand. In December, they won preceding both of their homestands on the road. The rest of the year, it just seems like the game before they go back home doesn't always go the Lightning's way. They the last time before December was the very end of November. They beat the Predators before losing to the Leafs at home. But, that 7-6 overtime loss against the Blue Jackets before a home series, a 3-2 loss against the Bruins, both winnable games before a home series came in November. I mean, it's been kind of pretty even split in terms of losses preceding that home series, but it's just not a trend that you want to see the Lightning keep up. And we will talk about some more trends, specifically involving the rosters, when we return here on Locked On Lightning. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite members was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement were just unforgettable. But now Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets to the Bucks playoff game using the Game Time app. With Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And it was game time for Jack Finley, one of the Lightning's most prized prospects, who was expected to start the season with the Tampa Bay Lightning. But another big injury that he picked up had him out until December. And as soon as he was ready to come back to the NHL, the Lightning jumped on that chance. Jack Finley made his NHL debut against the Boston Bruins, playing in 8 minutes as the line 4 center, getting himself a shot on net, one hit on defense as well, and winning 60% of his faceoff. So a solid NHL debut in 15 shifts for Jack Finley, who is 22 years old and was the second-round pick of the Lightning back in 2020. He had 2 goals and 4 assists in 10 games for the Syracuse Crunch this year after an AHL career high 32 points in 52 games for the Crunch last year at 13 goals and 19 assists. He has been playing all over the world, out in Russia, Canada, all over, and now getting his Tampa Bay Lightning, much anticipated Tampa Bay Lightning debut, with Jack Finley getting the call up to the Bolts. Gage Gonzalez was reassigned to AHL Syracuse. And this creates a potential decision, I think, for the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning still have some time before the trade deadline and the All-Star break and everything like that. And they're a team that I certainly expect to be making some moves during that trade deadline. But they're probably going to have to give up some prospects. So you look at, guys like Gage Gonzalez, maybe even Jack Finley, plenty of the other Lightning prospects. I'd say Gonzalez is now a trade candidate. I think that, he's been solid for the Lightning, but a goal and an assist in the amount of time in 26 games that he's played for Tampa, and still at a -1 in terms of plus minus. I mean, to me, Gonzalez hasn't done enough to prove that he is a long-term solution for the Lightning. And I think the Lightning might have thought, now that Finley's healthy, it's time to see what else they have. They're Lightning have plenty of young talents in their prospect pool. Isaac Howard of Michigan State, who might come to the Bolts after this season, is certainly who many think is the Lightning ringleader in terms of their prospects, with Connor Geekie well past prospectum. But I think it's a smart move for the Lightning just to start looking in Syracuse and seeing what else they have. Gonzalez hasn't exactly been put in a major decisive role, in a major like high impact role. He's been playing mostly on the third and fourth lines for Tampa Bay, but without as much of an impact to really move him up. I mean, Connor Geekie started the season playing mostly on the third and fourth lines, and for the better part of this year, he's played on the second. He has earned his way up on that higher line with some really good two-way play, and you haven't seen that as much from Gage Gonzalez. So he might be someone that the Lightning end up trading, or he could just be on Syracuse for the rest of the season if Finley can really emerge. I mean, obviously Jack didn't do enough in one game to show that he can, replace someone who has been been a key rotational piece in Tampa's lower lines. It's hard to say, he's going to replace Gonzalez right away after that game. It might be a trial period, but, I think the Lightning definitely want to see what they have with Jack Finley, and not have to dip down into the talent pool for any other guys. And maybe, can think about trading some of those prospects. Jaden Dureau is someone who is interesting. Dylan Duke, guys that have bounced between Syracuse and Orlando, could be on the menu for some teams. And Gonzalez could be an interesting piece just because he's had some NHL service time, but he's still 24 and has a lot of room to develop, I believe, and a lot of room to grow. So I think getting Finley back from injury kind of opens up the Lightning's options and just allows them, another prospect to just try and get up to speed in the NHL. And it potentially allows some space for trades. If there's a team that is looking for a young guy like Gonzalez, is kind of a project to try and lift up into a higher line, it might be a good flyer during the trade deadline. And the Lightning, I think, will definitely be making some moves. Could be for a defender if Ryan McDonagh is forced to miss additional time. He left the game early after getting hit in the head. That is not a player I think the Lightning can afford to lose. The good thing is, though, JJ Moser is progressing on track with his timeline. He was at the Lightning morning skate in Boston yesterday. His one-on-one injury practice time, I believe it was his first time back on the ice since the injury he picked up last month. So Moser progressing maybe ahead of schedule, still expected to be back in February, but it's a positive sign. And I think, I'm surprised it didn't give the Lightning more momentum in the game against Boston. Because, again, at the morning skate, it was a lot of happy faces, a lot of hugs for JJ seeing the Lightning's defender get back on the ice. But, there's still a couple of weeks, at least a minimum of 2 weeks, until Moser is going to be back on the ice competitively for the Lightning. And that would be a big boost, especially if Ryan McDonagh is forced to miss some time. The Lightning might have to dip back down to the AHL. Declan Carlisle, Steven Santini have been the two defenders called up. I've been talking a lot about Derek Pouliot, who leads the crunch in scoring still from defense. I mean, he's turned into a really good scoring defender, and I think could make a really nice seventh defender for the Lightning when they decide to go 11-7 and still fit in on a line here and there. But, the Lightning do have a guy like that in Darren Radish, who has been taking on that line one defender right on the right side with Victor Hedman role since Moser's been out, and he's been filling in pretty admirably. But JJ Moser still is progressing well, moving well on schedule, and on track to come back next month. That is still good news for the Lightning. Have that extra bit of stability, have another regular starter back, a regular line one guy having him back is going to be pretty huge. And that is who we're going to be talking about. Line 1 defense, Victor Hedman. We'll put Darren Radish on this, and JJ Moser. We'll be giving them midseason grades when we come back for the final segment. You just realized your business need to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you find the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where you need the right hire like yesterday. The pressure is on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That is when Indeed's sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. So you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOn right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Lightning. Terms and conditions apply, but if you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. And we've got another edition of midseason grades. We gave all A-pluses to the Lightning's forward line 1. And as I said yesterday, that is not something that will be repeated. There are a few lines in hockey that have been as successful as that Lightning first line. The Lightning first line defense is up to the grading test in this one, as we give grades to Victor Hedman, JJ Moser, and Darren Radish, the 3 who have played on the Lightning's first line for this season. And we're going to start with JJ Moser because I am going to give him an incomplete grade. I think that, he only played the first couple months of the season, and really right when you expect your guys to hit midseason form is when he got hurt. It seems like things were starting to click. Moser, I think, was adapting well. He's typically on the left side on defense with Victor Hedman taking over that spot. He moved to the right, and he's been solid. In 27 games, he had a +13, which at the time of his injury was second on the team to Ryan McDonough in plus-minus among Lightning defenders. So, he was one of the more efficient defenders, 2 goals and 8 assists. He still has more goals than any Lightning defender not named Victor Hedman and Nick Perbix. So third, he had more than Perbix at the time of his injury. Perbix has had a couple over the last month, but he remains one of the Lightning's highest scoring defenders on the offensive side. Moser's been a really solid 2-way defender and proven that he, could replace Mikhail Sergachev, as that was the big defensive piece in the Sergachev trade over the offseason. So I think the grade is still incomplete for JJ Moser. If I had to give him a letter grade, I'd probably give him a B+ or an A-. On the higher side, I'd say, just mainly because he's switching positions, adjusting to a new team, in playing more minutes than he has, and he's stepped up. Moser, I think, has done better than a lot of people expected him to do in his new role. So I think I'll give him a B or a B+, probably like a low B+ for JJ Moser, and it can certainly flex upward if he gets back on the right foot when he returns from injury. Because he's someone who I think can be a key piece of the Lightning defense going forward, and can certainly be a first-line mate with Victor Hedman for a couple years to come, and maybe even the rest of Hedman's career, as Moser is in his 20s. Definitely one of the younger players on the Lightning's defense, as Moser, 24 years old, second-round pick in 2021. Starting to get some of the most minutes of his career, getting some first-line reps with Victor Hedman for the Lightning. I give him a B+ on the season. And now we'll talk about the captain, Victor Hedman. And he has been exactly what you expect. I'm going to give him an A. I think there have been enough defensive mishaps, not as much on him, but just on the whole unit, that I think Hedman takes a bit more responsibility for now as the captain. Um, I'd still give him an A minus because not just of his defense, where he's been a rock defensively as he usually is, been just a fantastic leader as you expected, done everything. I mean, everything you'd want in a Lightning captain. Some big milestones. He's now one assist away from 600. He would be the first Bolt to get to his 600 assists. A 4-game point streak, 34 points this season. And if he gets an assist at home, he'll be the first Lightning to 600 assists, though that will be followed closely by Nikita Kucherov, who has 596 career assists to Hedman's 599. That is a debate for another time. But I think Hedman gets an A minus. I think he has been just so solid as a captain. Offensively, he has contributed more than most other defenders in the entire NHL. And defensively, he's been really solid. There's been a couple mistakes here and there from the unit, but I think Hedman's still been exactly what you'd expect from your captain, from your talisman, from a guy who's been with a franchise as long as Victor Hedman has. He has done everything that you could ask for the Lightning. Just Tampa, I think defensively has a couple things that they need to improve on in the second half if they want to make a serious run in the playoffs. They're certainly a contender, and I think Victor Hedman is a huge piece of that. Offensively, he's one of the best defensemen in the league, and he has just proven to be a rock time and time again on the defensive side of the puck as well. So I'll give Hedman an A minus for his first couple months as a captain, his first half season wearing the C on his jersey. And now Darren Radish, who has really been a replacement for JJ Moser on that first line, and aside from Hedman, has turned into the Bolts' highest scoring defenseman on the season. Hedman is 6th on the Bolts with 34 points. Radish is 8th with 15. 1 goal, 14 assists. He became the fastest Lightning defenseman to 50 career points with 8 career goals and 42 career assists for Darren Radish. He was primarily used as an extra defenseman, the 7th defenseman. He rotated in with Nick Perbix on the 3rd line to start the year before Perbix and Lilleberg was really cemented as that Lightning's 3rd line. And with JJ Moser's injury, he has been working on that first line opposite Victor Hedman. And Radish has been a really nice addition. He's an undrafted guy and not a player that often makes a huge impact on the Lightning. He had a -7 in his last 2 seasons, total -6 in his first 3 after playing 4 games between 21 and 22 for the Lightning. Now this year he's at +8 above his entire plus-minus from his first 2 seasons. And Radish is, at a point, John Cooper said he's a guy who just developed a little later in his career, and it might be why he went undrafted. It's clearly a guy who could make an impact on the defensive side, and he has done so in whatever role he's been asked for the Lightning, a more attacking defenseman in that 7th D role, but he's been able to sit back and play defense as well while still being able to move the puck up the ice and really push the pace for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So Darren Radish has been kind of bounced around a little bit. I think defensively, he could be a little bit more physical. I'm going to give him a B+, a high B+, though, like an 89. Very close to that A- role. But I think a lot of it is just because it's only been the last month that he has been used on a typical line. But, I still give him a B+. Definitely think he could sit back a little bit more defensively, can get aggressive at times on offense, but he'll get a B+. As a whole, I'll give the Lightning line 1 defense a very high B+, maybe even an A-. They've been pretty solid offensively. They've been helping the Lightning move the needle as well. A lot of that is on Victor Hedman, and frankly, a lot of the success of this first defensive unit is going to be on the Lightning's captain, regardless. So I think I'm going to give the Lightning overall a B+. Hedman gets the high grade. If you guys have any difference in opinion, we'd love to hear it in the comments or message us on X at @LO_Lightning. So we got B+, A- for the Lightning's defense line 1 and an A+ for the Lightning's forwards line 1. And we'll have more grades for the Lightning at this point in the midseason later on this week. But until then, I'm Josh Sperber, and I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. Now for your second listen, make sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And wherever you listen to your podcast, please give us a like, a follow, a subscribe. We really appreciate your guys' support and hope that you show it by subscribing to our channel. Thank you again for tuning in. Have a great week and go Bolts.